Many thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video. I suppose on the surface I was probably wrong, but the more I think about it, I believe I just got better at adapting to all the potential lighting conditions one is faced with when photographing the outdoors. See, when I first got serious with photography, everything I read, watched, and listened to, it all pointed at the requirement of only photographing during the golden hours of sunrise and sunset, as these were the most optimal times for creating the very best landscape images, and that one should avoid at all costs any other time of the day outside of the golden times, as this was considered to be the harshest and worst light of all. And I remember actually thinking to myself, you know, there's 24 hours in a day. How can there only be 2 good hours for photography? But I tell you what, for the first couple of years that I was really into landscape and outdoor photography, I very much subscribed to that notion. And I remember going on trips just for photography and literally shooting for 1 hour in the morning and doing nothing all day long, going out for 1 hour in the evening for sunset, and then that was it. So 24 hours in a day, 2 hours of photography, if I was lucky, seemed highly, highly unproductive. So you may or may not recognize this area. I made a video all about intentional camera movement in the same woodland area, I believe May of last year. I wanted to come out in March of this year searching for some, some nice fresh spring growth, maybe some nice dogwood trees or cherry blossom trees. I think I'm a little bit early. I should have come out here in a couple weeks. I'm leaving though for a trip I'm very excited about next week. I'm going to Bali in Indonesia, which is absolutely mind-blowing. I've never been that far away from home, so that's gonna be quite an adventure. But nevertheless, I did find some very nice, colorful trees. These, it's kind of as always, I have no clue what kind of tree this is. Someone let me know in the comments, please. But beautiful, pale yellows, pale oranges, and this particular one has got this really nice tree behind it, behind one of the branches. It's got some really, really nice texture. And with, I'm sure you've been able to hear, it's been this nice steady rain. I shouldn't say nice, it's kind of somewhat of a nuisance sometimes, especially to film videos in the rain. But rain in wet surfaces really brings out colors, and it makes a landscape look very interesting, very unique. So for the first couple years that I was into outdoor photography, like I mentioned earlier, all that I really did was, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier or not, but all I did do was focus on the golden hours, sunrise, sunset. And that's really all I became comfortable with. So when I didn't have that type of golden light, in my mind, that was bad light. It was unshootable light, and I didn't really know what to do. And I used to really believe that there was a such thing as bad light. There was a such thing as good light. But I think that all light is great now. The difference in what I believe now versus what I believed back then is that I'm more experienced now in photographing in different types of light. So I think I was completely wrong in that notion of good light versus bad light. I think it's all great, but there's so many different kinds of light out there. It really comes down to photographing in as many different types of lighting situations as possible and practicing those scenarios. I'm gonna try this in a horizontal or landscape orientation. But if you think about it, or have you ever thought about all the different kinds of light that's out there? I mean, you have golden light, you have blue light, you have backlight, you have flat light, you have dappled light, you have harsh light, you have no light. And I'm certain that there's many, many other types of light out there that I'm not even thinking of right now. But like this scenario here, a lot of people would say that this is flat light, or this is no light, this is not great light. But personally, for woodland photography, especially like waterfalls, this light's absolutely perfect for one main reason. And that main reason is because when you have nice flat lighting conditions, it's absolutely amazing because those conditions usually stay around for a while. So the reason I love it for woodland photography is, maybe a little bit slow, but it takes me a while to compose what I think is a good woodland photograph. These are very difficult scenarios to photograph in. So something that he is not explaining very well right now, and it's the overarching theme of this video, is a technique that's called photographing the light and not the composition. See, when I used to get on location, I would immediately start searching for compositions, and then I would find a composition, I'd refine that composition, and then I would sit there and I'd wait. And I'd wait for something interesting to happen, whether that's interesting light to hit my composition or interesting conditions to hit my composition, but I'd spend a lot of time just waiting and staring at my composition in hopes that something would happen. A different way to go about this is when you get on location, don't immediately look for a composition, just look for interesting light. And when you find some interesting light, build a composition around that light. Photograph that light, and then when that light moves, when that light leaves and changes, look for where there's some more interesting light and maybe build a composition around that. It's a really helpful technique to practice, and it's a completely different paradigm shift from what I used to do. So getting on location and photographing the light as opposed to the composition is a very, very great technique to possibly test out. So you need a little bit of time to do it. So if you're not chasing like golden hour light or chasing blue hour light or whatever the case may be, you're not chasing any kind of light, flat light like this, cloudy days where the sky is just kind of, flat, overcast, it's just a giant softbox with nice even light coating everything in the landscape, and it generally sticks around for hours and hours and hours. So you can just really just chill out, take your time, and enjoy it. And if you're a kind of an anxious guy like I am, a little bit nervous, kind of high-strung person like I am, anything to slow you down a little bit is just an absolutely beautiful, beautiful thing. So another very interesting characteristic or quality about different types of light. So I was doing a one-to-one session with a client last week, and we were talking all about the different types of feelings that different types of light convey. And if you think about it, it's pretty amazing. So sunrise, sunset, golden light, it's a very dynamic, very energetic, very forceful feeling to it. Blue light, so just before sunrise or just after sunset, has a very calming, very quiet, and a very ethereal feeling. So you go from calm, ethereal to energetic and forceful, and the only thing that changed is about 30 minutes or maybe 1 hour of light. But to have such a huge paradigm shift between calm and energetic in such a short amount of time, and the only thing that changed is the color and the direction of the light, it's pretty cool. Pretty awesome to think about that. So I repositioned on the opposite side of this tree and moved very, very far back so I could zoom far in to kind of capture that same tree with a nice color next to the other side, the other two trees. I really got to learn the names of these trees, but literally just kind of working the scene around. Just once again, good light is just going to stick around, so I can really just take my time and kind of wander all around this this location here. This kind of gives you an idea. The aspect ratio recording on this is a little bit different than what it will actually look like, but this kind of gives you an idea. I think it might look better in a landscape orientation though. Let's see. Yeah, I think something like that looks a little bit better. I'm going to play around with this and see if I can make it work. You can actually see how far away I am from the camera, or from the subject. The camera's way back there. Obviously, that's where you are. And here's the subject, and it's using that just really long, not really long, but using a longer focal length, pulling that scene together, creating that illusion that the foreground is getting closer to the background. I think it's great for woodland photography. But, talking about different types of light again, I think it's really, I first want to say that I believe I was, actually I don't believe, I know I was wrong about different types of light years ago. I always used to talk about, good light versus bad light, and like how harsh light was bad light, and I always used to use the term bad light. And when the light got bad or perceived bad, I remember leaving. But I'm completely wrong about that, because I think the more that you photograph and the more you're doing this, it's a numbers game. You're going to be subjected to different types of lighting scenarios the more times you're outside doing it. And the more you photograph in scenarios that are not ideal or what you perceive to be ideal, the more practice you're going to get in those scenarios, and more than likely you'll start to be able to embrace them. But I think understanding the different qualities of different types of light. So for instance, like golden hour light is absolutely fantastic because it's one, you get the nice oranges and warm color tones, which is an energetic feeling, but that light is very low on the horizon. It's kind of raking across the landscape, which is great for giving kind of a three-dimensional shape and structure to things. That's what side light is fantastic about. So that's one of the qualities for golden light. Blue light is fantastic for this ethereal and calm types of photographs, because it's all even light. There's no direct light on the landscape in Blue Hour. So it's very, very evenly lit scenarios, which is always a good thing. Makes things very, very calm. Sometimes it's a lower contrast scene because there is no direct light on it. But understanding those types of scenarios, we already talked about flat light, I think it really helps you to embrace all the different types of light, which ultimately helps you to enjoy all of them. Just kind of keep walking around the other side of this tree just to see if there's another angle or another composition here. I always love kind of just circling a subject, because what I find most of the time is your first angle that you think is the best is oftentimes not the best one. You go around to the backside and you realize that there's something that you should have been paying attention to the whole time, like this side right here. Make sure I don't fall down. I think this has got potential here. I'm going to set something up here as well. You know, I don't know if I do like it better on this side, because that tree trunk, that main one right there, is so dark. I don't know if that, yeah, I think that side of the tree trunk is just really wet. I don't really like the way, you don't get a lot of that texture because it's so, I guess, wet. Let's see, like that, something like that. I don't know, whoops. Maybe something like that, like a pano type style look. Yeah, either way, I don't think that this is the most photogenic side, mainly because that side of the tree, the side that's facing me, is completely wet, and you lose a lot of that kind of texture, a little bit of that shape on this angle. I'm gonna take a couple here just in case though. Man, I tell you what, that rain is persistent. It's just constant, just drizzle this whole entire time. Kind of comes and goes a little bit, but it has just been raining this entire time. The forecast said it was supposed to stop around 11. It was supposed to stop around 10. I got here at 9, sat in the van for a while and just waited. And then I guess I got impatient, but it was supposed to stop a while ago. What a shocker, the forecast was off. Found another composition here I really like. That it's completely different. There's like a tree in front of the subject, but the tree, I lined it up to where it's in front of the trunk of the subject in the background, and it kind of creates this illusion a little bit like that is the tree trunk. Let me flip this into movie mode real quick so you can see it. There it is right there. So yeah, it looks a little kind of a play on eyes a little bit, something a little bit different. Something that I do want to mention here, I always forget to mention this every time I do an on-location video, but I constantly get questions about why I shoot with higher ISO levels. For one, I think this camera, the GFX 100S, does a very, very good job at creating clean files at higher ISO levels. So right now I'm at 1600. And the reason I'm at 1600 is because the light is a little bit dim right now, and I could drag out the shutter speed, of course, and use a lower ISO level. But there's a little bit of breeze. So right now I'm at a 40th of a second. And even that is a little bit, could be a little bit slow because those leaves are moving just a little bit. So 99% of the time, whenever I'm shooting with a higher ISO level, it's because I'm trying to get leaves to be crisp because there's a little bit of movement in those leaves. And a lot of times in woodland areas, it is a little bit dim. So I find a great way to solve that is by cranking up the ISO instead of dragging out your shutter speed, because you can clean up a noisy file, but you really can't sharpen an unsharp photograph, if that makes sense, or an out of focus photograph. So just to wrap up my rant on light, a couple other types of light that a lot of people avoid. I know I certainly always did, and one was backlight. I always avoided backlight scenarios. Shooting into the sun, shooting into a light source was something I always avoided because it was a high dynamic range scene and I struggled with, and I just didn't know how to do it. But that's a great opportunity to show off texture and three-dimensional shapes in a photograph when that light is coming behind your subject. And the other type of light I think so many people avoid, I avoided it like the plague, is harsh light. The light that happens in midday when there's no clouds in the sky and this light's just beating down. That's a great opportunity to look for shadows created by subjects and use those shadows to complement your subject to create, a more balanced photograph or a harmonious photograph, something with a lot of symmetry in it. So there's a ton that you can do in all different types of light. So I no longer believe or no longer subscribe to the idea that there's a such thing as bad light. I think we are all super fortunate to even get any kind of light in a day. So really just embracing it and using the type of light that you have, I think that's definitely the right route to go, the correct route to go. I don't think the brighter light that I'm getting right now is going to make much of a difference with this composition. So I think the one I captured in the beginning is probably going to be the best one. But before I do wrap up this week's video, I do just want to say a huge thank you to the longtime sponsor of the channel, which is Squarespace, who I use for all of my e-commerce and website needs. Squarespace provides a dynamic and attractive online platform to create your website. You can display your photography using Squarespace's professional portfolio designs and customize the layout and look and feel of your gallery just so you can make it your own. With Squarespace's traffic overview feature, you can track trends in page visits and views to better optimize your content, and you can even grow and engage with your customers with Squarespace's email campaign tools, which will enable you to create engaging emails that match your website with your products or blog post and logo, just so your messaging remains consistent. So if you're looking to start a new website or possibly upgrade your current website, check out squarespace.com/Mark Denney for a free trial and 10% off your first purchase. So I do hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you did, if you could, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already, would greatly appreciate it. And if you have any questions about anything discussed in this video, please leave those in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to get back in touch with you as soon as possible. And as always, thank you so much for carving out a little bit of time to spend it with me today, and I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye.